the Banter Guy. Hello everyone, it is the Banter Guy here, and welcome back to Dark Souls. This is part 26. In the last part we defeated Calamite and completed the DLC area. But now that we've done that, we have to venture back to the classic game, and now we are heading to find our second large soul. And we have to call up the elevator. That was bad planning. But yes, so now we're going down to... well, we're going back to the Demon Ruins for a good reason, because we're going to continue from there and investigate that golden door after Ceaseless Discharge, which is, again, horrible name for that boss. Right, but if you go back here. The end boss of this area that we're going to and getting to is a really cheap boss. Now, the boss was done really poorly in my opinion. It wasn't interesting, it wasn't particularly difficult once you knew how to get past its very, very overpowered attacks, but up until that point it's a very, very difficult boss to beat. So we head down to the lake town. Okay, through the Blight Town depths. We're going to head to our bonfire because we need to have a little rest. And now we're going to head back to where Quaelag's domain was. So I have to roll through this horrible muck as before. And this is a strategy that is used. Basically, you run while constantly changing weapons. It depletes your stamina a lot less quickly, thereby making it easier to get through this terrible muck. So basically, if you press B while holding down Y, or press circle while holding down triangle and running, then you'll make it through the, well, constantly pressing circle or Y or triangle rather, you'll make it through this area a lot quicker with a lot less hassle. So here we are, in Quaelag's domain again. Fun memories. Not for a lot of players. A lot of people I talk to about Dark Souls, they always say that the ultimate difficulty spike for them when they first played the game was Quaelag, because you couldn't progress through the game without defeating her, and you were very limited in where you could go if you didn't. So I can understand why a lot of people strongly dislike Quaelag. Right, there's the second bell that we rang. A very, very long time ago actually. Back in, oh, what was it, part 7 or part 8 maybe? It was a long time ago though. Actually probably later than that. But here we go down this sort of blood-red path, going back down to the Demon Ruins. Here we are again, once again entering hell. So, let's head down it. Now that Ceaseless has cleared pretty much the entire arena for us, that horrible lava. And this is the part of the game where bosses that you fought previously become standard enemies. Now, you may be looking at those creatures over there and thinking you see some similarities. Now, you'd be entirely correct, because what is over there look familiar? They are in fact Taurus demons. And considering this is the demon ruins, it's not surprising they are here. Alright, so let us progress on. And our first fight will be with a Capra demon. Again, another enemy we have already fought, but we must now kill again because, I don't know, they're challenging, so they must be challenging again. Something like that. So he wasn't too difficult. But for all of these various Taurus demons, who by the way, they do not respawn, so you're always advised, in my opinion, that you're always better killing them, you want to draw them one at a time, and that can be very difficult unless you have a bow. Luckily we do, and so I intend to use that bow to draw them. Make our way down to it. There we have a short bow, and we have arrows. Yes, we do. We have. Do we? Well, okay, we've got bolts. Firing. Okay, we have drawn one of them. Have we? Oh my goodness, no, we haven't. Okay, well that plan is definitely not going to work. We just have to sort of hope they come one at a time. Gonna get our soul spears out for this. Hello. Yeah, one shot in Taurus demons. Interesting point. Not much as that would turn out. Come on. Come on. And there we go. Another Taurus demon down. So, there is another reason why I'm coming here to do this. Hopefully these guys aren't too bad. Holy crap. Run away, run away, run away. Get away, you moron. That was really bad. And there we go. Another Taurus demon down. Get up there, moron. There we go. We'll get the other item that's down here a little later. Let's heal again. And run. Okay. Well, that was a successful venture. See you back at the bonfire. And here we are. So that was a little detour off the main road. A lot of the enemies you've already fought, Capra demons, Taurus demons, and even the new enemies they introduce are not very difficult comparatively to other enemies they've introduced to you earlier in the game. For example, I'd say that the dark root trees, I'd say they're a lot harder than most other enemy introductions in this game. But that's just my experience. I suppose you might have different opinions. Or either like the drakes in Valley of Drakes. They were hard comparative to this. And I suppose maybe it's a bit hypocritical because I am a magic wielder, and again, they tend to be an OP class. But one thing I want to talk about in this video, as well as everything else that I generally talk about, is I have recently completed Dark Souls 2. 100%ed the game, fought all the bosses, talked to all the NPCs, got as many items as I possibly could, and beat the final boss and seen the final cutscene. Now, what do I think of Dark Souls 2? Well, if you've seen my thoughts on Dark Souls 2 video, you'll understand precisely what my opinion of Dark Souls 2 is. And there's the invasion I was looking for, invaded by Dark Spirit Knight Kirk. There he is. And there he goes. Oh, wonderful. And he drops a humanity. And that spike shield. Alright. I don't really like the spike shield much. His sword is better. Spike sword. But I've completed Dark Souls 2, and I want to share my opinion with you. Because when I first played the game, and I did my thoughts on Dark Souls 2 video, I loathed Dark Souls 2. Because I felt like it was an abomination compared to its previous game, and I felt like it didn't hold true to the series' strengths. Now you might disagree with me, but that's my honest opinion. Oh my goodness. That's horrible. That truly is horrible. But away he goes, revealing to us this bonfire. Now, what I wondered when playing Dark Souls 2 was how much Solaire pandering there was going to be, because I love Solaire from this game, and many other people do, too. Now, the reason I like Solaire is because he's a calm character, he's a good role model for the main character, and he generally is just, you know, a nice guy. Now, I felt like that was ruined when they introduced him in Dark Souls 2, but not just him, they introduced, like, they didn't introduce him again, or reuse characters, it was the Solaire Covenant, or the Sunbro Covenant, or whatever you want to call it. I felt like they took away his ambivalence and his mystery when they did that, because I like Solaire, and I like to think of him as the god of war from this world, and the son of Gwyn. Now, you may disagree with me, but that's my honest opinion of Solaire, and that's why I like him so much. Not just because he was the supposed son of Gwyn, but because he's a very interesting character in general. Now, I didn't like Solaire's Covenant repeat in Dark Souls 2 simply because it didn't fit, and it was a moment that broke my suspension of disbelief when I see the same character in two different versions of the same universe. It felt lazy, and it felt like it was pandering to the audience, and that's what I never wanted Dark Souls to become, much less a successor. So, yeah, I wasn't exactly particularly pleased with that about Dark Souls 2. One thing I did like, however, about Dark Souls 2 was that it did fix a lot of what I thought was bad about the Dark Souls combat attacks, because I often felt that enemies had... It was generally a game of, when it's a one-on-one fight you can win, when it's a more than a one-on-one fight in Dark Souls, and there were a few moments where groups were harder, it was almost impossible. Now Dark Souls 2 fixed that to an extent, but then it added harder enemies to make the system that they introduced to make it fairer, they make it even harder. If you know what I mean. But the thing is, if you'd asked me before Dark Souls 2 released, what did I want to be fixed about Dark Souls 2 most, or what did I expect to be fixed, I would have said either the Covenant system, or possibly the sort of maybe the extreme nerf of a lot of magic spells. Because magic in Dark Souls 1, as you can see, by this mere defiance and destruction of enemies in this level, basically takes away from what makes the game hard, which is the melee combat. Now, they should have nerfed the magic in Dark Souls 2, but it wasn't. The magic is still as OP as ever, in my opinion. And so even like at this level, with this high destructive enemies, I feel like the game is just really, really easy, and that's a real shame for a Souls game, because a Souls game is supposed to be difficult. And I can understand, whoa, crap. Let me go, 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 you prick. Let me go! Goodness gracious. Bull! Dark Souls 2 Covenant is worse in my opinion than this game's Covenant system, because this game's Covenant system enforced strict penalties for abandoning a Covenant you previously joined. Now I don't feel that is fair in an environment where, you know, you're supposed to fight off hundreds of guys from the Belfry Covenant just because that's the most used Covenant. I feel that is unfair, I feel it's not finished, and I feel that it didn't apply for any severe amount of attachment, thereby making the Covenant system all but useless. Okay, but now that we've dealt with all of them, we get ourselves a chest. And inside is the large flame ember. Okay, so, now that we've discovered what that is, I also wanted to talk about, in terms of Dark Souls 2, while we're just going through this area, I would also like to talk about Dark Souls 2 for its bosses, because Dark Souls, as you can see from previous parts and from this part, has quite difficult enemies generally and quite a difficult boss system. But Dark Souls 2, the bosses are easy, and the only reason they're hard for any reason is because the game developers were thinking, not how can we make this fight interesting and challenging, how can we make this fight more difficult, which is not what you want in a Souls game. That's not what they're originally intended for. And so I kind of feel robbed when it comes to Dark Souls 2 in terms of its boss difficulty, because they were thinking more about how can we add stuff and how can we make it interesting. Anyway, getting back to Dark Souls, this is where I think the game... I have my own opinion of Dark Souls, which is I think the game is slightly lazy, because, as you can see from where we're about to go, this is the third time they've used this bloody boss. We haven't seen the second version, but believe me, it's there. And that is shocking to me. Crap. So this is the Demon Fire Sage. He's like a really, really disgusting version of anything else, but he's not very difficult to beat. 3-hit boss. Extremely difficult indeed. And we get the Demon Catalyst and a Humanity, and is it 20,000 souls? Yeah, 20,000 souls. So, yeah. Third time they've used that boss, by the way. I've got to equip the Bandit's Knife. So, third time they use that boss. It's kind of lazy. Crap. Jerks. I don't like these really squidgy guys, or whatever you want to call them. They're just like... They just look like a pile of feces. I mean, they just look like feces with a face, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, yeah, so Dark Souls is not a perfect game either, but I feel like Dark Souls 2 is just not a game about interesting boss fights, well-programmed, or a well-thought-out story, which is important. It's not about the lure, it's about the story, what I'm talking about here, because the story in Dark Souls 2 is barely there. Basically, here's a summary of the Dark Souls 2 plot, I guess. Basically, you're this undead, you need to find a way of getting, I was going to say, there's a shortcut that goes back to Quelag's domain. Oh yeah, then we have to go back, we have to go down again. But the story, the plot as well of Dark Souls 2 is you're an undead, you've lost everything, you think there's a curse, so you go to the Lordran Lake to try and find a cure for the curse. Now, while on your journey, you meet the Emerald Herald, who tells you that to go and find the king. So you don't really know why, you just have to go along with it. I mean, although I suppose you could just insert the assumption that he maybe has a cure, even though the entire land is crawling with undead. Then, to progress to the next part of the level, you have to kill, to unlock the Shrine of Winter, you have to amass 1,000,000 souls or kill 4 of the most powerful beings in existence, which all circumvents a small wall. It's not a very well designed plot point, and it's not a very well designed level, because it basically inserts the assumption that you are in fact a moron who doesn't understand the slightest inkling as to what you are doing, because you have to circumvent a small wall by killing 4 of the most powerful demons in existence, which is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Anyway, and then once that's all done, then we go and find the Queen, who tells you that the King has gone, and you have to go and find him because she is essentially a vengeful bitch. She wants him dead. So you go and find him. When you find him, he's gone whole. Then you go to the King. Then you find the King's ring. Then, after some exploring, you find the ancient dragon, who tells you to go into the memory of the giants for some reason. And that you collect giant souls. That annoys the Queen for some reason, and so we kill her and take the throne. So it's not a very well planned story, in my opinion. Anyway, back to Dark Souls 1. I'm pretty sure this is dragged on long enough, so we'll leave it here for now, guys. As always, like, comment, and subscribe for more. Goodbye.